The Clinton campaign dealing with embarrassing revelations of its own, with Wikileaks releasing another batch of emails this weekend, allegedly from the hacked account of her campaign chairman, John Podesta, with more than 10,000 emails now made public. Which ones are most likely to create trouble for Clinton in the campaign's final weeks? So we want to talk about that, Jason, but let's deal with this issue of WikiLeaks. This is an invasion of privacy, let's face it.
Yeah.
These are emails that never were supposed to become public. The U.S. government has said they were almost certainly hacked by the Russians, then dispatched through WikiLeaks. What do you think about the fairness of reporting on these?
Well, we're journalists. We report the news, and we report leaks all the time, Paul. What makes it a little disturbing this time is, as you just said, U.S. officials say this is certainly Russia trying to influence a U.S. election. I don't think that makes any American feel good about it. And the Clinton campaign has jumped on that and said this should be covered as a national security breach story, and you folks in the press seem to be focused on the inner workings of my campaign.
There's no question, though, that if the other side had done that, came out, they would have used them too. No, and it's not as if the press has ignored them in the past. I mean, they wrote about the WikiLeaks when they were in disclosures about U.S. diplomacy and the handling of the war in Afghanistan, which did real harm on the ground, much less than this does. I guess my question would be, it's in the public domain. We have to cover it.
Exactly. I agree. We have to cover it, and that's what we're doing.
Okay. Mary, what's the most significant thing you learned from the email?
Well, I think the big picture here is that it just confirms what everybody thought, that the Clinton camp has a great disdain for the average American. They are willing to corrupt public institutions like the Supreme Court or influence them if it serves their political purposes. They're out for power. They're out for money. We saw...
Well, what specifically?
Sure. I'll give you a couple of examples. Donna Brazile feeding questions to the Clinton campaign before a CNN
head of the
interview.
Democratic National Committee now, acting head of the committee. So
that's right. That's right. You have aides discussing how to withhold emails from the Benghazi committee in Congress after they had been subpoenaed. You had Bill Clinton wanting to go out and give a Morgan Stanley speech for money, and aides within the campaign had to dissuade him from doing that. They said, hey, that wouldn't look very good after Hillary Clinton announces her candidacy, you going out and taking money from Wall Street. That didn't seem to occur to him. I mean, some really remarkable things here.
Well, yeah, I mean, what it does, this is the Clinton machine, right?
Right.
I mean, you read through these emails and you see how completely and totally politicized the operation is. It makes the campaign look almost completely fraudulent. They were simply trying to manipulate whatever she would say in public in a way that would look good for her campaign,
but again,
whether it was true or whether it was false.
But this isn't surprising at all, James. This is what political operatives do, no? I mean, they basically say, how are you going to...
There's not a smidgen of principle in there?
Well, no,
like I said, like I said.
It confirms a lot of what you might believe about the Clintons, but I think among the significant findings here is the evidence that the State Department under Hillary Clinton was helping Clinton Foundation donors,
how so?
Friends of Bill.
Example.
After a natural disaster in Haiti, obviously a lot of money and aid goes in there. Also, close behind, a large group of people wanting to get some of that money to perform various possibly useful functions for Haitians responding to this disaster.
And that came from the Freedom of Information Act request, not from...
Right, so we can't blame Julian Assange for this one, but I think it basically puts the lie to this long-time claim that there was this separation between the foundation, the Clinton Foundation, and the State Department under Hillary Clinton. They've said for a long time it didn't influence. What you see in these emails is people who gave money to Bill Clinton getting special treatment versus the average person who, when identified as not a donor, not a friend of Bill, is going off and sent to the normal website to get information like any other citizen.
And just to be specific about it, if you were labeled a friend of Bill, or a VIP for WJC, William Jefferson Clinton, you got put into one camp where you were one list where you were available for ostensibly for contracts with Haiti. If you didn't, you went to the average Joe's website and vented for yourself.
But there's a bigger problem here, Paul. A lot of Trump supporters are saying, why hasn't this gotten more attention? All we're talking about is Donald Trump and the women. And that's the problem here. Nothing in these WikiLeaks is going to interfere with coverage of Donald Trump saying
Why not?
women were too unattractive for
Why
me
not?
to sexually harass.
Doesn't this
because
bother
we are
you
the
as much?
press and sex sells. It does, but nothing is going to compete with the Republican nominee responding to these accusations. And we've seen this before from Trump, this self-destructive behavior, whether it's picking the fights with the Gold Star family or going after Miss Universe for days on end. He won't let Hillary Clinton
follow the rest of the press here. This is the story.
He won't let Hillary Clinton have the bad news cycle she deserves.
Mary.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but a lot of the media has just abandoned any pretense of impartiality here. You even had a front page story on the New York Times saying that they weren't going to cover Donald Trump fairly and almost being proud of it. Just before we go, we have to mention how the Clinton camp tried to influence the Supreme Court. I think it's the most important part of this WikiLeaks leak, in that they said we managed to cow the court into submission on the first Obamacare case. Let's do it again.
That's Neera Tanden, who was running the Center for American Progress, writing an email to John Podesta and some people on the Clinton campaign and suggesting, we worked once, let's try it again. Okay, all right, when we come back, Donald Trump taking a hit in some national polls this week. So what does it mean for Republicans in down-ballot races? A look at the battle for control of the House and Senate next.
If we lose the Senate, do you know who becomes the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee? A guy named Bernie Sanders. You ever heard of him?